You're listening to the Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
Hey, folks, welcome to the program. Thanks so much for being with us. Happy Monday. This is hour number 2, the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We're building a liberty machine. We got some big news, really an update. You're probably not going to hear this on anywhere else, not this kind of analysis. The Task Force on Tax Reform met today for the first time. Now, this is affectionately referred to by me as a tax farce or a task farce or whatever, or a tax farce, whatever. We have Josh Waters. He's on the line with us. He's from Political Strategies. He was there in the meeting room. Josh, welcome back to the program.
Hey, Paul. Thanks for having me back.
Yes, I'm really glad you could call. I know you're busy. You're actually going to be speaking in Faulkner County tonight. Where are you speaking tonight?
That's right. At the Faulkner County Republican Committee. It's going to be at the China Garden there in Conway. The meeting will start about 6:30. So, encourage any of your listeners in that area, come on out. We'll be doing a legislative review of the session, basically, that just wrapped up.
Okay, good.
And so that's where I'm headed now.
Talk to me a little bit about transparency, first of all. You were in the room, so my first question to you is, was it jam-packed full of lobbyists like we thought it was going to be? Because, they're having it in this building that's a little bit off from where the Capitol is, away from the cameras, the streaming devices that are in many of the rooms over on the House side that are designed to keep the people, not in the dark. So how many people were in that room today?
I don't know how many are in that seats are in that room, but there was probably about the furthest section was all filled up with students there for some type of history day, and so I don't imagine they'll be back at the remaining task force meetings. So if you take just the other people, I don't know the number, but being in those other rooms you talked about that do have cameras, I'd be willing to bet, it might be a tight squeeze, but I think everyone could fit in some of those other committee rooms that do have cameras. And so I'd like to see that going forward. I think it just provides more transparency for the people, so they don't have to have other people to, go down there and record and take notes. They can do it themselves if they want.
Yeah.
And that recording's out there for, I guess as long as the website's up. And so they can go in their spare time and go watch.
Yeah.
And so
you raised a great point.
We'll see where that goes.
You would say that, them saying that it wouldn't be enough room if they did it. I mean, you would disagree with that. You think there'd be plenty of room. I'm thinking of the building or the room that's actually across from Revenue and Tax. I think that's a fairly large committee room. It was jam-packed full of people. Several controversial bills went through in Judiciary, I believe. Or, and you just got to wonder why they can't just do it where there's some cameras.
Yeah, I think based on the audience that was there today and being in those other rooms, I think people would have been able to fit.
Okay.
So I don't know if they're considering that moving forward or what they expect turn out to be later, but I'd like for them to move it to get the video cameras set up on them.
All right, we're talking with Josh Waters. The next meeting, so today was a meeting. It was a relatively short meeting, right? What did they do exactly?
Yeah, it was about 30 minutes, I think. They just came in there, and the Speaker of the House, Jeremy Gillum, started out by just kind of announcing what they were there for, the task force, and then they moved into nominations for chair, and Senator Jim Hendren and Representative Lane Jean were elected co-chairs of the committee. There's no one else nominated, so
what a shocker! I'm so surprised.
So they were. It wasn't even a voice vote. It was a vote by acclamation. So I guess that is technically a voice vote. But then they went on from there. And
I can't wait till they start doing a vote by telekinesis. Because and we just trust the the clairvoyant to record the vote properly. I'm sorry, Josh. Go ahead. I don't mean making jokes. Go ahead.
No, it's there's no way to challenge the vote today. So basically they just went through. Then each person did somewhat of a kind of introduction who they were, because it was Senate and House members. So some people may not know each other as well. And so they went through and made introductions, and kind of a few just mentioned, they're glad to be there and, optimistic to be on the committee and ready to get to work, that kind of thing. And then Senator Elliott, they went into adoption of the rules, and Senator Elliott asked a question and about if there was going to be public input allowed. As you know, a lot of these committee meetings that they have during the regular session, people can sign up or sign in and testify on a bill or speak for or against the bill, that kind of thing. And so she was basically asking, would that work this same way? And Senator Hendren told her, public input is welcome, it's appreciated, and it's kind of, I think, going forward, depending on what their focus on, it might have to be limited, but there will be an opportunity for public input, and it was even encouraged.
Okay.
So that was, somewhat encouraging to know that they will be seeking public input, and people will be able to come and
how much are they going to
make
get?
Their voice heard.
Do they talk about money at all? How much they're going to be making from the taxpayer by doing this little special committee of legislators?
No, I didn't hear any dollar values, but they approved for expenses for their per diem. I don't have that number in front of me. I used to know that, but so they'll approve for their per diem and for traveling down there. And then they approved to allow the committee, if they need to hire experts, consultants, that kind of thing, moving forward, they approved for that to be an option.
Consultants,
basically.
hiring consultants. Because why should the legislators actually dive into the numbers and understand them? Why not get the consultants, pay them, these hefty contracts, and then they can put the data they want in front of them? Obviously, I'm very skeptical, Josh, about this whole situation. I know that you know this. But it's very, very good information. So you're telling me, in summary, they met, they selected the chairs, and then they voted on making sure they get their per diem when they're down there, their taxpayer, expense per diem. And is that pretty much it? Did anything else happen?
Well, they not really. They set the next meeting will be Wednesday, June 7th, and so they set that, and they did say that they would have an initial report out. I think the end of this year, and then their final report will come out, I guess, the end of next year, going into the next legislative session.
Interesting.
So then they wrapped it up.
We got some audio here. I feel like this is pretty revealing audio. Joe, so at the beginning of the tax farce, Speaker of the House Jeremy Gillum, he was presiding over the meeting before he passed the torch to Senator Hendren and Representative Lane Jean. And I'll get your comments on this, Josh, but let's listen to what he said. And let's just listen, and then I'll ask you the question. Go ahead.
It's going to be, I think, a very robust debate that will take place over the next year and a half as to our tax policy here in Arkansas. And I know a lot has been kind of written about kind of the mandate, so to speak, and it seems to always be mentioned that it's about which tax cuts are going to be put forth in the next General Assembly, and I think you are all familiar with the fact that that is not necessarily the overriding mandate of this task force. It is to look at reform and relief and making Arkansas competitive in our surrounding areas to make sure that we have a viable tax policy. And so
that's Speaker of the House Jeremy Gillum. At the beginning of the meeting, after they recognized the students, he said, and it's interesting, he said tax cuts, not necessarily the mandate, not the mandate. And I wonder, why do you think, Josh, he felt the need to clarify? Why does he? Because it is a clarification. It's almost like he's saying, the reports are talking about we're going to recommend tax cuts, but that's not the mandate. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, honestly, when you think back to the regular session, several people filed or wanted to file tax cut bills, but they were basically told, no, wait and let the task force handle it. And so if this, if they're not going to, at least consider moderate, tax cuts in this, I think that is kind of outside of what people anticipated or wanted. And so you kind of hear that, it's not just about tax cuts, it's about, making it fair, and you've heard other comments like that. So that's kind of confusing, it's a full picture thing. I get that, but I think there is a mandate for tax cuts because a lot of tax cut bills were deferred for this tax reform task force. And so I definitely hope to see some tax cuts come through the task force and get recommended out and drafted and get passed.
I do as well. I would love for them to, to deliver on the platform and the promises that they've made. But I too remember you had folks, some of them who were on the tax farce, and they had bills that they didn't run because they went along with what the governor said on day number 2 of the session. Hey, we're not going to do this. We're going to have a tax farce or whatever. But it's just incredible to me that the Speaker of the House feels the need to clarify that we're not talking about tax cuts here. We're and what's interesting to me, Josh, is one is much easier to define. Tax cut. Now, they could still define a tax cut, and I could disagree with it because it could be a revenue-neutral tax cut, okay? But it still conveys a certain message to any reasonable person, any objective person. Oh, okay, a tax cut. But then he changes it to overall tax reform, and I'm just curious. That could mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people, and it could mean more money going into the government, i.e., more money coming from us to the government, and that's my fear.
Yeah, I think that's a fair fear to have. I think part of that maybe is I know they want to look at a lot of these exemptions that are in the code, which I think is good. Maybe that's the fairness part they're talking about. But, there was some people who were saying, or a lot of people maybe who were arguing that the internet sales tax was fair, the gas tax hike was fair. And so fair is like you said, depending on your side of the argument, you can say what's fair or not fair. But a tax cut, if there's a cut in the income tax rate, that's pretty clear on what that is and what that means.
Yeah.
If there's a cut in the sales tax rate, that's a lot more clear. So I guess time will tell.
One last question. We're talking with Josh Waters. There were more people in that room than are on the task farce. And I guess my question is, some of those people were on this other committee that kind of surprised people. They didn't really know what it was for. It's like a committee that Speaker Gillum picked about economic policy. Do we have any more insight into what exactly those guys are doing there?
Well, that wasn't really clearly defined today in the meeting. They announced, they would be there, and I don't even think they necessarily announced who they were, ran around and introduced themselves like everyone else. But, what I've heard in the speculation is that, this committee is kind of coming alongside the task force and will be there at all the meetings and kind of take the recommendations and then try to put those into action. And so it seemed like maybe they're trying to say, well, this is the task force is for recommendations, and then the subcommittee maybe will draft some of the legislation. And so it's still not really clear, at least hasn't been clearly defined in the task force what the subcommittee's role will be interacting with them going forward. But that is something I've heard that could be their role.
Josh Waters from Political Strategies. I appreciate the update, sir, and I appreciate you being there on the ground, and I'd love to do it again soon. Of course, the next Task Farce meeting is on June the 7th, correct?
That's right.
Okay.
Wednesday, June 7th.
All right. Well, you be safe.
Yep.
Have fun tonight in Faulkner County, and we'll talk to you soon, sir.
All right. Thanks, Paul.
All
Appreciate
right.
it.
Thank you very much. And, folks,